Today, I want to pull the curtain back on something completely different.
It is definitely different. It's an industry that's practically invisible, a little bit taboo, and it's happening quite literally right under our feet.
Exactly. We are diving into a niche that most people prefer not to think about. But, and this is the part that really jumped out at me, it is surprisingly profitable and almost entirely recession proof. We're talking about the business of grave care.
And before anyone tunes out thinking we're about to discuss funeral homes or, heavy machinery for digging graves, let's clarify the mission here immediately.
Right, let's draw a hard line. We're not talking about being an undertaker.
No, not at all. This deep dive is focused on a very specific microsegment. It's the service gap that opens up after the funeral is over.
It's what happens when the mourners go home and the years start to pass.
It's interesting because your first thought is, doesn't the cemetery do that? But this whole business exists to solve a very specific, very human problem.
And that problem is.
It's really two things: distance and ability. I mean, think about how society works now. Families move. You grow up in a small town, but you end up in New York or London for work.
Right. But your parents, your grandparents, they're still buried back in Ohio, or maybe even back in the old country, like Poland or Italy.
Exactly. So you physically can't visit on a Sunday afternoon to pull the weeds. The geography makes it impossible.
And then there's the other side of that coin, which is ability.
Yes, the sources really highlight this. A huge portion of the client base is elderly themselves. You might have a widow who lives 2 blocks from the cemetery. She wants to care for the grave, but she just physically can't get down on her knees to scrub a headstone anymore.
And that triggers what one of our sources called survivor's guilt.
That is the emotional engine of this entire business. It's not about dirt, it's about guilt. People feel this profound, nagging need to honor their loved ones. And when they can't do it personally, that guilt creates a demand for a proxy.
So you're not just hiring a cleaner, you're hiring someone to be present when you can't be.
You're buying peace of mind. That's the real product.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're going to look at why this is such a high-margin side hustle that can scale, the specific numbers, which are honestly kind of shocking, and the surprisingly high-tech ways people are running this.
It is definitely not just a bucket and a sponge anymore.
So let's start with the basics. What exactly is the service? What am I paying for?
At the entry level, you have the bread and butter tasks. This is basic care. We're talking clearing debris, fallen branches, old leaves. You're pulling weeds and doing a basic wash of the headstone.
Sounds simple enough.
It is, but it's detailed work.
Oh.
Wiping down fences, trimming the grass right up to the edges where the big mowers can't reach.
But the sources also distinguish between that and, like, a premium or restoration tier.
Right. And this is where you move from just cleaning to actual preservation. We're talking about painting rusted iron fences, minor masonry repairs, and the big one, restoring inscriptions.
Restoring inscriptions. You mean recarving the stone?
No, not recarving, but repainting. Over time, the gold or silver or black lettering on a stone fades. Repainting that takes a really steady hand and special enamel. It makes the stone look brand new.
And I saw mentions of replacing photos, too.
Yes, that's a huge one, especially in certain cultures where ceramic photos on the headstone are common. They fade or crack. Replacing them is a really common upsell.
But here's the thing that really stood out to me, and it connects back to that survivor's guilt idea. You're not just selling the cleaning.
No, you are selling the proof.
Right, the before and after photo report.
That is the most critical part of the whole service. Because if your client is in Toronto and the grave is in London, they have no idea if you actually went.
So they're not really buying the cleaning, they're buying the visual confirmation. They need to see the before, the moss, the weeds, and then the after, where everything is sparkling and respectful.
Precisely. That photo report, or maybe even a short video, is what actually delivers the peace of mind. Without it, the service basically didn't happen in the client's mind.
I want to circle back to something we touched on because I think it's the biggest misconception. Why do I need to hire someone if I pay the cemetery? Doesn't my maintenance fee cover this?
That is the multi-million-dollar question. And the answer, particularly in the US and Canada, is in the fine print of a term called perpetual care.
Perpetual care. That sounds incredibly reassuring, like we'll take care of this forever.
It sounds that way, but what it usually means, legally, is care for the common areas. They'll mow the big lawns, keep the roads clear, trim the big trees.
So they're maintaining the park, essentially.
Correct. But they rarely, if ever, do personalized cleaning of individual stones. They are not going to get down with a toothbrush to clean the lichen out of your grandmother's name.
So if the headstone's covered in bird droppings or moss, that's on the family.
Exactly. And that gap between the general groundskeeping and the specific intimate care of the monument is where this whole market opportunity sits.
Okay, let's talk numbers, because this is where it gets really interesting for anyone with an entrepreneurial itch. The barrier to entry here is remarkably low.
It's incredibly low. The sources put the solo tier startup costs at between, what, $500, $1,500?
Well, $500, that's nothing. What are you even buying for that?
You're going to the hardware store. You need simple garden tools, shears, a trowel, and you need brushes. And then you need cleaners. The sources are very strict on this. You need eco-friendly biological cleaners.
So no bleach.
Absolutely no bleach. Bleach is the enemy. It has salts that get into the stone and crack it from the inside over time.
Okay, so tools, special soap, and what else? A smartphone with a good camera.
That's it. And a car. You don't need a branded van or an office. The cemetery is your workspace.
Wow. And what's the upside? What kind of money does this actually generate?
For a solo operation, maybe a small team, the annual revenue is in the range of $60,000 to $130,000.
That is a solid living.
It is. A one-time cleaning might be $40 to $150, but the real money is in the subscriptions.
The recurring revenue model.
Right. You sell a plan. Maybe it's $150 to $600 a year for 4 to 12 visits.
And this is where the aha moment happened for me. The margins. When I saw the gross margin percentages, I had to double check them.
They are high. We're seeing gross margins of 50 to 85%.
85%? That's like software territory.
It is, but think about your costs. A few gallons of water, maybe $2 worth of that special cleaner, and a little bit of gas.
There are no expensive raw materials.
Exactly. The main cost is your time and labor. So your net profit, even after taxes and insurance, stays between 20 and 70%. In the service industry, that's phenomenal.
It makes sense. It's almost pure service. And that leads us to the business model because the sources are unanimous. The golden goose is the subscription.
Yeah, let's dive into that. The subscription stabilizes everything. If you're relying on one-off jobs, you're always hustling.
Yeah.
But you sell a subscription once, and that family might stay with you for 10 years.
It becomes a relationship. You're their steward for that site.
Exactly. And to scale that, you have to move beyond just being one person with a bucket, and that's where technology comes in.
I was so surprised by this. You don't think of grave care as a high-tech industry.
It's becoming one. To build that trust with remote clients, the smart businesses are using apps with cemetery geolocation.
So kind of like Uber for graves.
In a way, yeah. It provides automated transparency. When you get to the site, you open the app, you take the photo, and it stamps it with GPS coordinates and a timestamp.
So it proves to the client, I was at this exact spot at 2:00 p.m. today.
Exactly. That data builds immense trust. And once you have that trust, you can start upselling.
Right. Increasing the average order value, like seasonal packages.
Totally. Special decorations for Easter, wreaths for Christmas, fresh flowers on Mother's Day.
Floral delivery, candles. And what was that other one? The genealogy service.
Oh, I love that angle. It's a huge value add. Imagine you have a client in the U.S. who knows their great-grandfather is buried somewhere in a huge cemetery in Europe, but they don't know where.
So they hire you to be a detective.
Essentially, you charge a premium to go to the archives, find the plot, document it, and then you sell them the restoration and maintenance plan. It's brilliant.
Now, speaking of Europe versus America, we should touch on the regional differences. This isn't a one-size-fits-all market.
Absolutely not. In the USA and Canada, the main driver is just sheer distance. Families are spread out, so the demand is for remote care and digital reporting.
Whereas in the UK and Europe, it's a bit different.
In the UK, there's a big focus on historic preservation. You have very old cemeteries, so there are strict rules on what chemicals you can use. You have to be more of a conservator.
And then you have countries like Poland and Germany, which is a whole other level.
That's a fascinating market. There's a deep cultural tie to All Saints' Day on November 1st. It's a massive social obligation for everyone to visit the cemeteries.
And the sources had a crazy stat about that.
Yeah, a grave care business in Poland or Germany can earn 30% of its entire annual income in the month of October, just leading up to that one day.
30% in 1 month. That's like retail at Christmas.
It is the Black Friday of the cemetery business. The social pressure to have a perfect-looking grave for that holiday is immense.
And then there's the diaspora connection we touched on.
Right. Targeting specific immigrant communities.
Mm.
You know, Ukrainians in Canada or Poles in the UK who want to care for graves back home. If you can speak their language and understand their customs, you have a very targeted, high-emotion customer base.
Okay, but we have to be realistic. This isn't just easy money. There are risks. What's the biggest hurdle?
Seasonality is a big one, especially in colder climates. You're not doing much cleaning in Montreal or Minnesota in January.
Right. It's hard to scrub a stone that's buried under 4 feet of snow.
Exactly. So your cash flow from cleaning just stops. Some people offer snow removal or a candle placement to mitigate it, but you have to plan for a 3 or 4 month downtime.
And what about the legal side? Can you just walk into a cemetery and start working?
Generally, no. This is where amateurs get caught. You need liability insurance. What if you accidentally chip a neighboring headstone?
Oh, wow, yeah.
You need insurance. And you need to know the cemetery's rules. Private cemeteries often require vendor permits. You can't just operate like a ghost in the night.
And then there's the soft skill aspect, the ethical sensitivity.
This is critical. You are dealing with grief and memory. Your marketing cannot be aggressive. You can't put a flyer on a headstone saying, "Your mom's grave looks dirty, call us."
That would be incredibly tacky.
It's tacky, it's disrespectful, and it feels like extortion. Your marketing has to be passive and empathetic. If you're aggressive, you destroy your reputation instantly.
So let's zoom out. What we've got is a business with a low barrier to entry, high margins, and a recurring revenue model.
It checks a lot of boxes. It connects physical labor with emotional labor.
Hmm,
And because of that emotional connection, it's very sticky,
sticky.
meaning customer retention is high. Once a family trusts you with their loved one's memory, they are not going to switch to save $5 a month. They trust you.
It's a relationship business disguised as a cleaning business.
That is the perfect way to put it.
I love finding these hidden corners of the economy. It's a reminder that opportunities are everywhere.
Absolutely. Sometimes the most stable businesses deal with the things that never change.
Before we wrap up, we always like to leave our listeners with something to chew on, a final thought for the future.
Well, I was thinking about where this is all going. As we become more and more mobile, our connection to these physical sites gets stretched thin. The digital report is already the main product.
Right, the photo is what the client actually consumes.
Exactly. So could this service evolve into something else? Maybe the future isn't just about cleaning the physical stone. Maybe this industry evolves into a digital archive of memory.
What do you mean by that?
Imagine that client account you log into. Right now, it's just photos. But in the future, that account becomes a virtual memorial. It holds the genealogy, photos of the person, the family tree, and the updates on the physical site. The caretaker becomes the curator of that digital space.
So the physical maintenance is just the baseline requirement to support the digital experience.
Right. You're not just paying for a clean stone, you're maintaining a digital anchor for your family history. The real value might become that digital connection itself.
From stone to server, that is a fascinating thought. It completely changes how we think about visiting a grave.
It does. It keeps the memory alive in the cloud, but grounded by the stone on the earth.
Well, that is all for this deep dive into the hidden world of grave care. Who knew there was so much depth and profit in cemetery maintenance?
There's always more than meets the eye.
Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next one.